Anytime you're watching this, there is bird flu circulating somewhere in the world. Maybe that sounds scary, but let's learn more about avian influenza and see how it affects birds and how it affects us. There are 4 species of influenza: A, B, C, and D. B, C, and D are not known to exist in birds. So let's focus on A because almost every type of influenza A can exist in birds. Each type of influenza gets a specific name based on which markers it has on the outside. There are 18 different H markers and 11 different N markers. Only certain combinations can transmit from birds to people. Some examples are H5N1, H7N3, H9N2, and so on. The point is that there are lots of combinations. For one more layer of sorting, there is low pathogenic avian influenza, LPAI, which usually causes mild disease or has no signs at all, and highly pathogenic avian influenza, HPAI, which causes severe disease and mortality in birds. So one influenza strain name would be like this: HPAI A H5N1. Highly pathogenic avian influenza is the name and severity of the virus. A is the species. H5N1 is a description of which markers are on the virus to help distinguish it from other A influenza. Avian flu strains are constantly evolving and recombining in new ways, and random chance means that outbreaks occur in different places. Avian flu usually spreads through direct contact between infected birds and healthy birds, but it can also transmit through water, feed, or equipment that has been in contact with droppings, saliva, or mucus from infected birds. The reasons we hear about bird flu more often these days is because we have billions of chickens living in close contact and being moved around between farms. An outbreak of avian influenza in these factory farms spreads exponentially. When an outbreak occurs, governments intervene. They quarantine the affected area so that equipment and birds don't leave. They euthanize the affected flocks, which can result in euthanizing thousands or millions of chickens. Then they disinfect and test the area to ensure that the facility is virus-free. In the US, there's also compensation paid to the producer to encourage avian influenza reporting. Almost all avian influenza exists only in birds and doesn't have the ability to cause illness in humans. Of the subtypes that can infect humans, so far there's only a limited ability to spread to other humans. Avian flu is constantly circulating in bird populations. Very, very rarely it can infect humans in close contact with birds, and then very, very rarely it can spread between humans. The people who have gotten avian flu so far got it from close contact with infected birds, or close contact with an infected person, but it has only ever made that one jump between humans. There has been no sustained transmission. Of the hundreds of studied cases, the human mortality rate is about 60%. But as we've learned in our current pandemic, there were probably many more mild cases that went undetected and were not studied. There is a tiny chance that H5N1 or one of its cousins will become the next human pandemic. Before you start stocking up on face masks, let me assure you that this virus is pressured to succeed in birds. As much as a virus can be said to care about anything, this virus does not care about humans. Another helpful thing to know is that there is already routine monitoring of flocks for bird flu, and the current system used to track seasonal flu in humans can also detect bird flu. What about the future? The number of birds raised for food is increasing, so outbreaks will increase. There are some strains of avian influenza that require intense responses every time they arise, H5N1 being a particular one to pay attention to. Many governments already have bird flu vaccines stockpiled, so they can quickly respond to outbreaks. These vaccines are for birds, but the same process could be used to make a vaccine for people if needed. Bird flu can also be treated by the same antiviral medication used to treat human influenza. This is a threat we know to watch for, and there are people already watching for it. Learning about bird flu is helpful, and I hope that this gives you some useful context the next time you see bird flu in the news. Thanks for learning about birds this week. If you're from the future, please let me know if I was right or wrong about avian influenza. And you can subscribe to get useful information about birds. Thanks for stopping by this week to learn what makes life awesome.